Welcome back, and once again, sincere apologies for the technical problems that we have been having. Well, we're going to play you a clip from President Jacob Zuma earlier, reaching out, as it were, to some members of MPs of opposition parties. Let's take a look at this.
Honorable Mayor, thank you for your suggestions on what can be done to contribute to the economic turnaround. Whether one agrees with you or not, at least you discuss the matter at hand. Honorable Shenge, the need to assess the positive and negative impact of policies before passing them. We have already acted on this. We took a decision that from 1st September 2015, all future legislation and regulations will be subject to socioeconomic impact assessment before being passed. Honorable Van Dam, youth development, including youth employment, is an integral part of all government programs. Following an extensive consultation with young people, we now have a National Youth Policy 2020, which was adopted by Cabinet in May 2015. I listened very carefully when the leader of the opposition, my honorable, my man, when the EFF was disrupted, he stood twice to say the millions of this country wanted to hear what is being said from this parliament, and therefore they must not make noise. Very important point made.
Professor Ndlejana?
Yes.
He was on a charm offensive, wasn't he?
That's vintage JZ. But he needs friends, you know. It's a very difficult time for him. Tough decisions will be made in future about his own job. He hasn't been doing a good job lately. So he knows that, you know, he needs people in his corner so that they don't fire him, I'm afraid.
But did the trick work, though?
I don't know. You see, that's the problem, because this is just one event. There's been an accumulation of serious mistakes that have really led to questioning his leadership, his own integrity. And when we've had that series of mishaps, you cannot easily turn them around by just one act. You know, and also because there's a vast difference between what you say and what you do. He says competent appointments in parastatals, for instance, and yet we know that he's made very terrible appointments. He talks about BE, that black people should be given preference, and yet we hear constant mentioning of the Guptas, a family of foreign origin, coming to South Africa and getting almost, well, not all, but some major tenders over local business people. So for him, I'm afraid there's a profound lack of credibility. The message is all fine. He said all the right things, but the messenger is not quite trustworthy. So it's too early to say that, you know, he made it.
Now, from the DA made it clear that they're going ahead with the, vote of no confidence and so on, but we all know that that's not going to work. It's not going to yield anything. But beyond this point, what do you think will be the attitude of the opposition towards him?
The opposition want him out. They certainly want him out. They're going to talk impeachment all the time, and that's unfortunate for him. And there was something interesting that was said by Minister Pando about that resignation, referring to Maimane, saying, even if Zuma were to resign, you would not be president. She is admitting to the possibility of resignation. She's not saying he will not resign. So I thought that was interesting. And they want to push that line.
But was that not to just spite a Maimane? You know?
Another spite could have been, well, you will not get your wish, straight up, right? But in this case, there's some admission of the possibility of that happening. And the opposition is smelling blood. They're going to go for it because it paints the ANC into a corner. This is an election year. So the ANC is not about to get out of it. They will have to come up with a new narrative. They've done extremely well, housing, electricity, this and that, but people are looking for more details. And unfortunately for the ANC, they've been doing blunders now, which overshadow their good work. And now the entire narrative has centered around President Zuma for making decisions that are entirely inexplicable.
Oh, look, the opposition parties are going to try their luck. Experience, reality says the chances of them winning are next to, well, are zero. The question then becomes, what does the president do now? Perhaps to win back some minds, or hearts and minds. What does he do now to restore the confidence that you're saying many people have lost? And perhaps more importantly, how does he make sure that the ANC does not suffer again or beyond what has happened already in a year that is an election year?
Do the right thing. Do what he's promising to do. Remove incompetent people that we know about and appoint competent individuals. Stop pursuing a nuclear program that most people think it's too expensive. In fact, the NDP is not so big on that nuclear program. It says you must go for solar, you must go for wind. And to build confidence, you need to create certainty that everyone is behind the NDP. If you have a plan that says, no, don't go for solar, and on the other hand, you are going for nuclear, then you are creating certain uncertainty.
But I did ask the Minister of Finance, who probably, or not likelihood, will say something that sort of settles the matter somewhat, who said, look, we're going for, he didn't use the exact words, an incremental approach. Nuclear is one among many options that we are pursuing as a nation. And we will only do what we'll be able to afford. We will only do what is safe and what we realistically can do. In other words, it's not going to be a free-for-all where, some people have speculated that there's billions that Putin wants from South Africa. There's other money that people like, the Guptas may be gunning for and so on. He says, no, it's not anything of the sorts. As a nation, we're going to be responsible. We're going to live within our means, and we're going to do what is right. Do we have any reason to doubt him?
No, not Pravin. You don't have a reason to doubt him. Hopefully he stays in his job. The last time he spoke like that, he was fired. Hopefully this time around, he won't be fired. If you have Pravin sticking to the message, saying same thing over and over again, then you are likely to create certainty and a sense of direction, because Pravin has a lot of credibility. So as long as perhaps President Zuma steps back a little bit, give finance ministers, DTI Minister Davis, for instance, who to announce major industrial projects. There's some stuff on the pipeline, so we need to focus attention to the positive things. People are getting jobs here and there, and we need to call on business to do something. There was this meeting before the president spoke, meeting with CEOs, and there was a lot of hype around it, as if they are coming up with a massive rescue package. And yet his speech did not contain any dramatic announcements.
But if we leave his speech aside, though, don't you think the act, perhaps in itself, of saying, beyond this, we're going to establish a two-person team comprising of Pravin Gordhan, the Minister of Finance, and Jabu Mabuza, who is the head of Business Unity South Africa. And between the two of them, they are going to steer us in a recognizable direction that we believe will be to the benefit of the entire nation. And from what I'm told, within that are issues like, let's be frank with each other. You know, government has come to the party, and these are the things we've put on the table. If you think there's something missing, what is it? And tell us what it is, and we're going to tackle it. But on your side, you also have to say, we're sitting on trillions of rands. You know, what are you putting on the table to do what and to what benefit? But which I think is a positive move, even though it hasn't yielded anything so far. They probably haven't even met, since that one meeting where the president was. But isn't that positive?
It's a good start. It's a good start. But you see, business is apparently sitting on more than 500 billion rand of savings. It's not being reinvested back into the economy. Why are they doing that? Will this meeting get them to do something? So we shouldn't be excited by little gestures. We should be looking for something substantive. My fear is that business might use this crisis to get certain concessions from government to keep the status quo and not yield on certain things. We need major investment in this country.
But whose fault is that? Can we put the blame solely on the government for that? Because, we know our history. We know the history of this continent. We've seen business moving into areas where there's death and devastation, right? But where they were able to make loads and loads of money, they did.
That's my point. We shouldn't celebrate business as this great savior today, because yesterday they were not there. And the day before that, we've been calling them to come on board. We have a crisis. They haven't come on board. So now they come, and seemingly they seem to be making some minimal concessions, and yet we are meant to celebrate, right? So we can only celebrate if these committees come up with something concrete. That's really what we are looking for. If we're talking patriotism, if we're talking business coming to the party, then we mean real things, not self-righteous postures, that we are here to save the country when, in fact, in the hour of need, previously, they haven't been around.
I'm afraid that's where we're going to leave it with all the glitches we had today. Professor SABC Ndletyana is, of course, with the politics department at the University of Johannesburg. Time now to take a quick break. When we return, we speak to the Premier of the Northern Cape following her State of the Province address.
For victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back, because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates, and more. Sports Live, weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
SABC News. We report, contextualize, and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly, and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful, and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate, and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. Well, despite disruptions from the economic freedom fighters, Northern Cape Premier Sylvia Lucas presented her State of the Province address today. The Premier's address focused extensively on the economy of the province, mining and agriculture in particular. The two sectors her government considers to be the backbone of that province, but which are struggling at the moment. Premier Lucas said the provincial government is looking at how it can best cushion the blow of job losses that the two industries will most likely have. Well, for details of how her government is going to do this, the Premier joins us live from our Kimberley studio. Premier, welcome and thank you very much for joining us. Once again, apologies for what happened earlier.
Thank you very much, Vuyo, and good evening to you and good evening to the viewers. Yeah, we succeeded in doing what we are supposed to be do, because we are here to speak to the nation, especially the citizens of the Northern Cape, and to make sure that they understand what we are planning and how we are planning to make sure that we deliver to our province.
Well, mining and agriculture, which are the backbone of the economy of the province. In agriculture specifically, we're experiencing drought as a nation. The question is, do you have any plan to really up your sleeve to try and really deal with the situation?
First of all, you must understand that the Northern Cape has got a mixed agriculture, or agricultural mix of irrigation farmers, but also of stock farmers. Those that have suffered the drought the most was the stock farmers. And it is in that vein that we, especially for the emerging farmers, have spent some resources to make sure that we assist them. And we will have further resources that we will possibly get from national to make sure that we assist them even more. We hope and we are positive that we will have enough rain so that the veld can actually regain, and so that the farmers will be able to then start making sure that they actually come back to the original state of the animals that they are having. I must say we didn't have a lot of complaints from the irrigation farmers. The Northern Cape, mostly, especially during the summer season, is known for its vineyards and its grape farming. And the hot climate is actually very good for the grapes, apparently. That's what I understand from the farmers. So we are in the midst of the storm, like we have said today in our statement to the province. But mostly we hope to assist the emerging farmers so that we don't get too much losses, and we are always there. We are assisting them with information. We are assisting them as far as we can with resources, and that is what we are trying to do to enable our farmers to be able to address the effects of the drought.
Well, perhaps, as you say, they are not complaining at the moment, or they're not raising any major issues. But going forward, do they share your optimism that it's going to get better? Are they confident in their own minds that it's going to get better, just from your, conversations with them and from what they are telling you?
You can imagine that, especially the stock farmers, what they are experiencing. I think as a mother, it should be more or less what I would have experienced if I've seen my children suffering. So for them, it's a very serious issue, which is also very serious for us. So that is why we are doing as much as we can. But the unfortunate part is that we cannot really manage the elements. We cannot really manage nature. But I must say, if you know a farmer, you will know they never lose hope.
Let's go to mining, if you will, which is another sector that is the backbone of the provincial economy. Is the mining industry, remember you've had not too long ago greenfields projects, several mines starting from scratch. Do they too share your optimism that the future is looking brighter?
Most of the mines are coming to us, and it is clear that they have thrown in the towel, because they are just telling us about retrenchments. Others are speaking about selling their interest and things like that. But on the other side, of the coin is the 2 mines that just started operations within the province. And I think it's one way that we can use it as an intervention to make sure that we accommodate some of those that are being retrenched by other mines. But also we are not sitting on resting on our laurels. We are speaking to people, to possible investors, that if it comes to a push, we are requesting them to see how they can assist us, how they can come in, possibly getting some interest in the mines, possibly assisting us to see how they can actually, maybe on a much decreased scale, see how they can actually try to see what they can do for us in terms of the mining. Our province and our economy is really very dependent on our mineral resources. That is a fact. And that is why it is something that is extremely difficult for us. But we want to make sure that although we won't be possible to bring the mining sector to what it is today, remember Kumba, Season Iron Ore Mine, and other mines like South 32, they are the kind of mining companies that have been the backbone of this province's economy. The unfortunate part of it is that they are actually the ones that are now already giving us notice of their intention to retrench how many people. So you can imagine the impact that it is having on the economy of this province. But we cannot sit and now begin to put our hands in our hair and sit and cry. What we are trying to do is to make sure that we are speaking to other people so that we can see what kind of interventions can take place, so that the severe impact that it will have on the economy of the Northern Cape and also on our social security should be mitigated. And that is what we are striving for.
Well, true, you may not be able to, take the mining industry in the province back to its glory days. But the question, I guess, is whether you've been able to sit down with the Kumbas of this world and said to them, let's do a bit of number crunching. If you were to retrench 10,000 people, can't we make it 5,000 and maybe compensate you some way? In other words, some creative ideas. Have you been able to sit down with the industry and said, let's crunch the numbers. Let's look at what we can do and perhaps where we can compensate you. Anything of the sorts?
First of all, one thing that I take issue with the mining companies, especially a company like Kumba. Remember, they had this Envision program for their employees, in which they gave them about 2 or 3 years ago, in which they gave them about $500,000 each in terms of kind of sharing their profits with their employees. But what they didn't do is actually to assist these people to be able to manage their finances. And the unfortunate part of it is that I cannot think that we will find 100 of their workers today that can tell you that they have invested this money profitably in any scheme or anything. I don't think so. So the first thing that I was asking from them, if you are going to retrench these people, you are going to give them severance packages, good and well. But how are they going to survive? So that is why I've said to them, let us sit down and see what we can work out to make sure that even if you retrench these people, the impact would not be so severe on them. We remember many of the employees of Kumba took up housing bonds. They bought housing through the scheme that Kumba developed. Where will these people be going, if at all there is this retrenchment? So that is why they said to me that it will be up to 6 months that they will be working on this deal. So different issues can come to the table. And that is why I'm saying also, we are also trying to bring some kind of interventions to assist us to make sure that the impact in the end will not be so severe.
But how much of the responsibility should the government be taking also, Premier? I mean, we all know that for most of the miners, they are really trading with their, labor. And that's all that they have. They are not particularly well educated. So did the government come to the party to educate these people, say, spend your money wisely? Remember that you may not have this money tomorrow. I mean, isn't this a lesson to the government as well, that you can't just leave such people to their vices?
I don't know whether you remember a few years ago we had the same issue with De Beer. And the Department of Social Development specifically went in and they took up a program with these miners and also assisted them in negotiating some privileges from the employer, which was De Beers in that case. So we were saying to the Kumba then, what becomes your responsibility? Because in the end, if you retrench these people, it will become the responsibility of the government. So let us sit together and see how we work out a program, like I said, that will mitigate the impact of the action that you are going to take. But for now, I see the private sector has got this tendency, just looking at the commodity prices and just looking at the profits, but forgetting that these profits and all these things are coming through the people that are working for them. So we have a common responsibility together with industry to sit down and to see how we are going to assist these people to make sure that they are not destitute whenever these retrenchments are taking place. But we have also spoken to another mining company that are opening a mine, and they are already busy. They are in pre-development. They are going now into full-scale mining. We have also spoken to them to say, how can you come together as industry, speak to each other, and maybe take some of the workers from this mine to make sure that we really get some of the people economically active, so that we don't have the same impact that it should have had if there was no hope for them.
Premier, that's where we're going to leave it for tonight.
Hello.
But I want you to give us an assurance, one little assurance in 10 seconds. With the little money that the province is going to have, can you give the people of South Africa an assurance that you're going to be tough on corruption and unnecessary expenditure?
We have already started last year with austerity measures as this province. We were one of the first province to put a moratorium on the filling of posts, except for the HOD positions that are still vacant in the province. We have started a trend that we are accountable and that we are responsible as this province, because for too long we have been seen as a province that are corrupt, or at a province that corrupt activities took place, which was not necessarily the case. But unfortunately, you cannot deal with every perception that is there in the public eye. But what we have already done, we have started, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Thank you very much. Once again, apologies for what happened earlier.
2 seconds is clear.